Well, hello, author Julie Bennett.
Hi there, Michelle.
How are you?
I'm doing good today. How about you?
I'm glad today is a good day. Today is a good day for me as well.
Good.
I am so excited to have a chance to sit down with you and just learn about your caregiver journey and your book and pick your brain a little bit about I don't know, just what you wish you knew and what you think other people should know. And I know all of that goodness is in your book, which I have not had a chance to read yet because I just learned about you last week. My dad lives in Santa Rosa and sent me the newspaper article
Wow.
that features you. And so anyway, we're just going to talk. And I'm
Okay.
really pleased that you're with me. So thank you.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thank
Well,
you.
do you want to give us just a little bit of background, which I know it's a 12-year time
hmm
span, just about what your caregiver journey looked like?
Sure. So it started, well, my husband had a heart condition, and he never had any symptoms until 2005. And at that point, he was, they put a defibrillator in so that if anything happened, it would shock his heart.
Hmm.
So nothing happened for 2 years. And then in 2007, we were coming out of Target in Santa Rosa and walking, and I could feel him behind me, but he grabbed onto a truck and he started falling to the ground. And I thought he had died, but the defibrillator shocked him. And from
Wow.
that moment on, after going to the emergency room and all of that, he just got progressively worse. And so from March, when this happened, till September 3rd, he was expected, he didn't have much time left, but we were trying to get him set up for a heart transplant. And thank goodness we did. He had the heart transplant on September 3rd. And we had to live in San Francisco for 30 days while doing tests and all of that. Went home, thought everything was going to be hunky-dory. And then in the end of November, he ended up with pneumonia.
Mm.
And the doctors thought it would be a simple one, but it wasn't. It was Aspergillus pneumonia, and that should have killed him, and that did not. He had such a strong will to live, and I'm so thankful because I had another 12 years with him.
Mm-hmm.
So after he went through that, which was 107 days in the hospital,
Oh
and driving back and forth to San Francisco for me to, keep giving him support and all of that. He came home, and then it was back to work for me. And he was trying to figure out what is he going to do now that he's retired because of a disability.
Mm-hmm.
So he seemed, his body never got back to normal after the pneumonia, because it was such a horrible disease and it took such a toll on his body. And then with the heart transplant. So, but he was doing okay. He was able to drive, get around and everything. And then in, I'd say around 2013, 14, we started noticing some memory issues, not knowing anything about dementia or anything. This was all brand new. And so in 2015, we finally got the diagnosis that it was Alzheimer's. And we were, of course, devastated, because after everything he'd already been through, to have that diagnosis, was just horrible. So brand new thing for both of us. What do we do? And, from there, we got the support we needed, and I'll let you go ahead and ask your questions.
Well, first of all, for those listening, I'm from the Bay Area, And so I know when you say you were commuting between Santa Rosa and San Francisco, like I know what that really means.
Yes, yes.
I mean, that's hours on the road, both directions. So it sounds like you took like a leave from work.
Yes, I didn't before he had the transplant, and was just taking vacation time and sick time, and probably ran out of all of that. But to get through that part of it. But when he went in for the aspergillus pneumonia, I actually went and talked to my doctor about applying for a stress disability.
Okay.
And was able to get that in order to, just not work while I could, drive and be with him. And then as soon as he came home, it ended, and I went back to work. Luckily, my employer was good enough, I should say, to keep me on, and my colleagues all kind of filled in where, for my job. So I was able to come back and go right back to work, which was really, I was really thankful about that.
Yeah. I mean, that's amazing. I think that's one of the biggest issues that people have, are trying to balance everything and navigate everything. And you are just reading the article. I feel like you're one of the most resourceful people I've ever heard of.
Wow, thank you.
And I've worked in senior living for over 7 years, and I've been a caregiver for 10 years. And I think that's something that's really struck me, about you, is that you're like looking around, okay, what are my options? And how do I implement them?
And what, this one moment, I was driving home from San Francisco, and I was crying, and I was thinking, I can't do this. What do I do? And so I was having this self-talk, and so I said to myself, okay, if you could do anything you wanted to do, what would you do? And I didn't even have to think about it. I would drive back and forth to be with Scott. And once I knew that, then I thought, okay, then now you need to figure out, how are you going to make this work, commuting back and forth to San Francisco? And I realized the first thing is, don't drive during the commute hour. So I changed I made sure that when I drove down, it was after the commute hour. And when I went home, it was after the rush home too. So that helped immensely. And then, just figuring out, like, listening to a couple books on the drive down, and or radio stations, just making sure I was engaged with something. So helped immensely.
That's super impressive. Was there a point at which you were like, oh wait, I'm a caregiver now? Like, because we just operate in the roles that we start with, right? Spouse, daughter, granddaughter. Was there a point at which you were like, oh wait, this is different?
I think it came pretty early, because Scott couldn't do stuff for himself, especially with the he was waiting in the hospital for the transplant and everything. And I think because of the way that caregivers are kind of ignored, I didn't really maybe got that the term caregiver was what I was doing, but I did feel like I wasn't that important in Scott's, recovery and everything. And so I guess I tried to make sure that they knew I was there, and I was like the most important person in his journey, in him getting well, helped me to maybe, I don't know if I helped with the staff and everything, but I was never pushy or anything like that I believe, but I did take on the role, and I was there to support him any way I could. And when I knew he wanted to live, especially with the heart transplant, there was this one time when, I know what it was. We were at home. It was before the transplant, but it was in between hospitalizations. And our son Jonathan came over, and we were talking about what was happening. And Jonathan said, in fact, we weren't even waiting yet for the transplant. We didn't even think about it. He goes, well, have you thought about a heart transplant? And we kind of looked at each other, and I'm thinking, I don't think I could handle that. I didn't know what it entailed or anything. And I looked at him, and he said, well, if it will keep me alive, that's what he wanted to do. And I thought, well, if he wants to live, I'll do whatever I need to do to help him with that. So.
Well, and I don't think irony is the right word, but obviously you being by his side, feeling ignored a little bit by the staff, you were part of that will to live. Like, you were part of that driving force for him.
True. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's a pretty important role.
Yes, it is. It is. And I hope with things like your podcast and other books that are out there, that the caregiver becomes more recognized as really important to this person's, what's going to happen with this person. If the caregiver isn't given what the tools that they need, how can they make sure their loved one receives the care and support they need? So,
right.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's such a beautiful segue into the book and your willingness to share your story. I don't know if fascinated or delighted is the right word, but you kept all of your email updates to your family.
Yeah.
And I think it's probably had a dual purpose. You're kind of journaling.
Yes.
For yourself.
Right.
And then sharing information. So at what point were you thinking, I think other people should maybe hear about this, and you decided to put it into a book?
When I first started writing the emails at night and then sending them to friends and family members, so I didn't have to call everybody, people would write, and I kept it as light as I could, which wasn't always easy to do. But I also told them what was happening if I was frustrated with the system, and and talked about things that Scott would have said or something, and try to keep it light and humorous at times if I could. And people would write back and say, you should put this in a book. So in the back of my mind, I kind of always had it there.
Yeah.
But after the aspergillus pneumonia and he came home from the hospital, I didn't have the energy to do anything. So from that point till diagnosed with Alzheimer's, I wasn't really writing much or anything. But as soon as he was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, I decided, okay, if I'm going to write a book, you need to start, journaling or just writing as whatever you can. There were times when I didn't have the energy to continue or to write. So I would just write little notes about what happened to remind myself. And then when I went back to write the book, I had something to start with, and I could, actually remember kind of what was going on in my mind and with him that day. So it helped a lot to do that.
It's really amazing, because I think that one of the things that people that have not been in this role or this world, they don't realize is what's really happening. Like, we talk about it, caregiver burnout, and we talk about dementia and what that looks like. But I don't think people really understand.
No.
What's really happening.
No. And you can't, unless you read the book or my book or other books, but unless you're in that position, and before I was, you don't know the full the exhaustion that that people go through, and just your life is not really your life anymore. You're kind of there for that person. And if you're their spouse, you're it's 24/7. And if it's like say a daughter with a mother or son with a mother or father, it's different. It's different, but you still have all this responsibility besides taking care of your own family and
Right.
working and everything. So, yeah.
So how did you take care of yourself? How did you take care of yourself? I mean, um, when you're feeling that exhaustion and when you
Mhm.
are feeling so overwhelmed, because we know that there are cycles to this, like there's a point in which things plateau and
Mhm.
we're like, okay, no sudden movements.
Right.
Like, I think we're okay right now, but
Mhm.
then it kind of hits the fan. And anyway, so
Yeah.
how did you do that?
When he was in the hospital with the aspergillus, one of the nurses told me this one day, I had been coming for 2 weeks straight. And she said, why don't you take tomorrow off and do something for yourself? And I
Mm,
thought about it and I thought, I don't know. I didn't feel really good about it. But that morning, the next morning, I thought maybe I should, and so I talked to her on the phone. I talked to Scott, and he said, he was kind of like, well, okay, but the nurse was really pushing me to, take some time for myself. So what I did was I thought, well, what can I do really close by? And if you know our area in Santa Rosa, there's wineries real close to where we
mhm.
lived. And I
Yeah.
thought, I am going wine tasting. And as I went, well, and the thing is I don't even remember if I even tasted any wine. I just drove around to all the beautiful wineries and, stopped at a few. And I think I bought a sweatshirt for myself. And, that just doing that helped me so much to kind of refocus and continue on.
Yeah,
So
it is a spectacular area. It's like the whole area is like a movie set.
it is. I
It's
love
so
I love
pretty.
it. Yes.
Yeah. So I know a lot of times when we're caught up in that day to day of the grind of caregiving, I know I saw in the article that you do meditate.
Hmm.
And so just, I don't know if you can talk a little bit about what that looks like or what your practice looks like. Because I try and explain to people it doesn't have to be a big sit down to do, like
Right.
an hour at the monastery. It can literally just be a few minutes here and there. Can you just
Yeah.
elaborate a little bit about what your practice is like?
Well, I'll have to be honest, I don't meditate every day, but but I do have I go to not go, I'm on Zoom for a meditation class. It started out in person, but then COVID hit, so it
Hmm.
all went Zoom.
Hmm.
But it's it's a class through the JC, our junior college. Okay.
Hmm.
And it's an older adults class and it's free for older adults. And so there's a group of about, in this particular class, I think we average around 15 people. And our teacher, or I'm not sure what we call facilitator,
Hmm.
uh, she'll talk about spiritual things, and then that'll weave into the meditation. We meditate for about 20 minutes and then we have discussion afterwards, and it's a little different every single week.
Hmm.
And it's a wonderful class and it just kind of grounds you, so for the week. As far as meditation, I think for me, other than that, because I consider myself spiritual, not religious, and
Hmm.
I'm constantly talking to God or whoever believe in. And I think for me, that's a meditation in itself, just either thanking God or whoever for the day, for whatever I've got. And then if there's something I need, then put it out there, and then say thank you. And that to me is, I think, sort of a meditation as well. So
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an effort at mindfulness of just taking that moment of gratitude, which can also just help recenter you. Because even when things are really messy, there's something like there's someone maybe that came into the hospital room to take out the trash for them, or that nurse that popped in and said, "Can I get you anything?"
Yes. Yeah.
There's always a little something.
There's always someone out there. If you look for it, there are little miracles everywhere and every day. And that happened all the time through all of that, our journey, I felt.
Yeah.
Didn't matter who it was, there was somebody. If I needed something, there was somebody there to help me get through it. I like to think that was the same for Scott, because of course he went through the illnesses, and that I cannot even imagine, going through what he went through. But maybe I was his little miracle every day. I don't know. At least I want to think I was.
Yeah. I'm sure you were. That does bring up a good point, that sometimes when we are in this position and it's so draining on us, if you can just have those moments where you're looking at it from their perspective, and build that bridge of empathy is how I like to think about it. It's hard.
Yeah.
And he was able to communicate for a really long time what his perspective was.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, with Alzheimer's, when he ended up in the nursing home, and I know you haven't read the book, and that's fine, but he lived in the nursing home for a year and 2 months before he passed away. And with Alzheimer's, you can't remember things, and he knew who I was up until I think 2 months before he passed away. But there were times when he was really mad at me. And I know it was because he wanted me to bring him home, and I couldn't do the physical part anymore. But I was there as much as I could in person at the nursing home. That part, I thought, if I can give him that, but because he couldn't remember seeing me, say, the day before or the afternoon, for lunch, and I'd come in at dinner time, I could tell he thought I had abandoned him. And so when we would remind him, I was here, and then I would he'd think none of his friends were coming, and he was like the one that got more people coming to visit than, that's what the nurses always told us.
Right.
And so I'd remind him, and I say, Matthew, your son was here yesterday, and your friends Bill and Marilyn, they were here, and Richard, and then he'd get this big grin on his face, so he got it for that moment. And then I'd leave and it's gone. So it's really hard. Yeah, that part's really hard.
It sounds like the way, even just as you recap the story, that the way you communicated with him was with a lot of compassion and grace. I know that, yeah, I mean, it is hard when you feel like you are personally being attacked or have hurt someone that you love. And I don't know, do you have any thoughts on how people can navigate those conversations? Because I just remember hearing this one son really upset with his mom and yelling at her and just saying, "Remember, what's my name?" And it just hurt my heart. So just in your experience, how did you kind of center yourself when you're having those conversations?
It was, most of the time I could handle it. But there was this one time, and it's not like I said anything, but one time he was sitting in the dining room for dinner. This is in the nursing home. And both of us had gotten familiar with a lot of the residents, and we
Mhm.
just loved them, and they just loved us as a couple individually, so they would be at our table.
Mhm.
And so this one time I come in and Scott's with, a few of them, and I got situated and gave him a little hug behind him, sat down, and I said, "Hi, honey, how you doing? How are you today?" And he's looking straight on and he says, "You don't belong to me anymore. You, um, I don't want you here," or something like, and I can't remember the exact words at this
Mhm.
moment, but I was like shocked and my heart just hurt. And I said, "Honey, it's your wife, Julie. I'm just here to help you eat." And Jeannie, one of the residents, goes, "Scott, that's your wife. She needs to come here to help you. And he goes, "No, I don't want you here anymore. You're not a part of me. So I ran out crying
Mhm.
and found the social worker, and she kind of talked me down and everything. And then we went
Mhm.
back, and they're visual. They don't see like me coming in. He would not
Right.
have seen me come in, but I came behind him, and she came in to talk to him and said, "Scott, your wife's here. Do you want her to help you with lunch?" And he said he didn't say anything. And she asked again, and he goes, "No." So I left, and after I left, I found out that Jeannie was crying and told one of the CNAs or nurses, "Julie's not coming back anymore." And she was just so upset. And the person told her, "No, Julie already talked to me, and she's coming back tonight, and she'll be coming back. Don't worry
Mhm.
about it." So, but it was, yeah, it's a hard thing. And I think for me though, I knew in my um in my being that it wasn't Scott. He thought I abandoned him. I would be upset too if I were in a nursing home and he had left me, I guess.
Mhm.
And so, I just tell myself that this is, if I could take him home, I would have taken him home. I just couldn't.
Right.
And just letting, you know, realizing that this is just the way it is, and this isn't really him talking. He wouldn't hurt me like that if it was a normal situation, if that
Right.
makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Well, and it's the heartache and the gift of their brain resetting.
yes.
The heartache, of course, is, where you're not here, where have you been, or nobody's come.
Mhm,
And then
mhm.
the gift is, after a situation like that, is there will be a reset. So
Yes.
then hopefully people can get to a space where they're coming back in, um, also reset.
Hmm.
So that they're not walking in anxious and upset.
Hmm. Right. And I know that the man that you mentioned with his mom, and he was
Mhm.
yelling at her, "Remember me?" That
Yeah.
happened in the nursing home, where there was one lady who couldn't speak, and she had to eat puree food, but her daughter would come in and kind of just, she didn't get she didn't get it.
Right.
And she thought her mom should be able to talk to her. She should be able to eat the food. And
Right.
that's really sad, because we have to teach or not teach, I should learn
Mhm.
about the disease so that we can react and be a loving presence for them. And it's hard to do, but that's what we as caregivers need to do, so that we aren't yelling at them.
Right.
I mean, hey, I was not perfect, I will tell you that. um but I talked to myself quite a bit if I got upset, and usually I would only get upset if I didn't get enough sleep. So that was a big thing that I had to work out and make sure I got enough sleep, because that's when I would get upset. So
Sure, absolutely.
yeah.
Well, and I think just even just reading the article and this brief conversation, just knowing how resourceful you are, it sounds like as things shifted and changed along the journey, you were able to learn and pivot to meet Scott with what his needs were.
Right.
And
Right.
my understanding is at the end of each chapter, you are sharing what you wish you would have known.
In a sense, yes. And I write it, it's a note to caregivers with tips on what to do based on what I just talked about in that chapter, for the most part.
Yeah.
So,
oh my gosh, that is huge, because people, we just don't know what we don't know.
no, it's true. Right.
Um,
Yeah.
So I think that's incredible that you included that as part of your experience and the story that you're telling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and the thing is when Scott was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, Kaiser in our area, they have a memory clinic. That memory clinic is so wonderful. There's a social worker that meets with the caregivers and goes over what is available out there. I didn't know. And one of the organizations was Alzheimer's Association. And that was a godsend, because for both of us, in the early stages of the disease, the caregiver and the person with the disease can go for a support group, and it's at the exact same time, 2 different facilitators. So he's in his little group and I'm with the caregivers. And I'll tell you, for 2 years, every week we went to this, and we became like a family, and we would do things outside of the group, like meet for lunch or go do things. And it was the best part about it was everyone in the group, no matter which side you're on, knew what was going on with the other people. You know what we're all going through the same thing, and so you have that camaraderie, and you don't feel like you have to explain what's going on with Scott.
Right.
So that was such a blessing. I mean, if for anyone listening, they need to get support, and whether it's Alzheimer's Association, heart disease, they have support groups, diabetes, all of the different, diagnoses out there, there are support groups, and you need to be resourceful and find those in your area.
Well, and we do, like, our world sort of shrinks as the diseases progress and logistics get more and more complicated, and it just becomes very easy to shut the world out and stay so singularly focused. And it's nice to be in a space where people are speaking the same language, so to speak, like using similar terminology, or where you can say something like, he urinated in the trash can last night, and no one will be
shocked.
Right.
Right.
It's
they get
it. Yeah, it's that safe container that can bring some of that camaraderie and reassurance. Yeah. Well, I had pre-sent you questions. Was there anything, because we definitely want to talk about where people can find your book. Is there anything else that you wanted to share or cover?
One question you had was, what are words of encouragement for someone else going through this? And one thing I'd like to say is, don't try to do it alone. If you do, you're going to get sick yourself, and you don't want to do that. You want to be as healthy as you can, and you need the support. And I can't stress that enough. So, there's all kinds of places, there's the Alzheimer's Association, there's the county, our county anyway, has an aging department. And so, if your income is low, where do you get that support? That's through the Medicaid program, and go through your county for that. There's just so much out there. And if they did go ahead and get the book, each chapter will kind of go into where you can get the support. I try to address it, you know, I mentioned things in our area, but also suggest, you know, whatever state you're in, wherever you live, there's something there. You can go to your doctor, you can go to, I mean, even call a hospital, I mean, nursing home, whatever, but just make sure you get the, you know, the care that you need.
Well, and you applied for grants. I wasn't even aware that those were options available, but so you were able to apply for grants so that you could pay for respite care, which is just like a day service program, or maybe overnight if, but yeah, so that's brilliant. I believe every city should have an area office on aging.
I would hope so.
Yeah.
And the grants that I got, the first one was through Redwood Caregiver Resource Center, which is local here. But, you know, somebody just go online, look for caregiving resources in your area. But I got $1,000 grant, and it was 3 hours a week with a paid caregiver that came in and gave Scott a shower and maybe took him for a walk and that kind of thing. And I could go out and do something that I couldn't do with him, you know, like sometimes going to the grocery store was really hard with him. So, you know, it just made it easier. And then Catholic Charities, which could be nationwide, I'm not sure. You don't have to be a Catholic, you just, you know, but they had a Alzheimer's adult daycare program. And so he went 1 day a week for that, and he ended up loving it. They danced, they, you know, they did crafts and stuff, but he really enjoyed being there with other people that were going through the same thing as he was. You know, it was, I think it was good for him to be away from me, you know, it gave him some time also to just be with other people. So,
well, we're all energetic beings, right? And so we kind of need that shift in our energy to be around other people who are just mixing it up a little bit. You know, one thing I do want to talk a little bit about before you share where to get the book is just once Scott passed away and you had been doing this for 12 years, which is like an eternity. And there were so many ups and downs. How did you begin to put the puzzle pieces of your life together, no longer in that role and without your husband?
It was really difficult. You know, a lot of times people think because you've gone through all this time as the caregiver that maybe you've already done your grieving. And even before he passed away, I used to think or wonder, what am I going to feel like? And I was surprised at how much grief you go through after they pass away. And so for me, I first thing I did was join the meditation class. That was one. And I joined a Tai Chi class. And then there was this one, what was the other? There was one, I saw, this is kind of funny. I saw something on, through one of the senior centers, and it said, how to age gayfully. So I was thinking, so I'm thinking in my head, okay, so that sounds really good, you know, like being happy, fun, that kind of stuff, so and joyful. And so I signed up and everything, and I go to the to sign in for the class, and I could hear some talk behind me about the LGBTQ, you know, but I still wasn't getting anything. So I'm standing in line, sign in, pay, go upstairs to the class, and I go in and sign in. And I even saw the facilitator was someone I knew from when I worked, you know, years ago. And I thought, well, that's good, you know, but then as I was looking around, there were so many people, and I thought, this doesn't seem like a, like a gayful, fun. I felt like I was like in a dating game or something, like, and so I thought, and then it hit me. It
Right.
was for LGBTQ people. And I thought, well, that's really cool. I mean, for
Yeah.
them, but I know I didn't fit in. So I went to turn around and leave, and there was this long line going out, and one person said, "No, you're in the right class, come back." And I thought, no, I know I'm not,
Yeah.
so anyway, that kind of cracked me up that I didn't get that. But I, so the thing is go out and find something that makes you feel good, makes you joyful. And so I volunteer for the Alzheimer's Association.
Mhm.
I'm now facilitating 3 different groups, and it's tough because I'm listening to what I've already been through,
Yeah.
but I also feel like I'm helping the people as they're going through it. And so it for me, that's what helps me too. And then just getting together with friends, going to lunch, breakfast, whatever, and
Mhm.
walking. I
Mhm.
walk. I don't walk every day anymore, but walking on a trail that's close to where I live, and just getting out with nature and everything, and that's what people need to do. And you have to deal with your grief.
Yeah.
Don't think it's just going to go away. It's not. And it just hits you at odd times, like you might hear a song that you both liked, and you just feel, I would feel Scott kind of with me and stuff.
Mm.
But you just have to go through it and know that it's grief. It's not depression, it's grief, and you will get through it. And there's lots of support groups for one-on-one or group grief support through hospice and other agencies. So, find that support for going through grief.
That's wonderful. And you're right. It just strikes you at times that
Mhm.
can be unexpected. I know my father-in-law said, I don't want everybody to be sad and,
Mhm.
sitting around and not living their life. And my response was, you don't get a vote.
Right.
Like, I hear you. I hear what you're saying, but we are going to miss you. And
Mhm.
um, we will laugh and we are going to cry. And it will just, everybody has their own journey
Yes.
with
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, how do people find your book? Where can we buy it?
It is available on Amazon and Barnes and Noble, and then the publisher is Balboa Press, so it's available through Balboa Press. And should I go ahead and, if
Yeah.
I hold up the
Yeah.
book?
Hold it up. So it's The Phoenix Man.
Mhm.
And the Phoenix Man is, who named Scott the Phoenix Man?
So that's a good story too. So when he was in the hospital for the aspergillus pneumonia, I wasn't getting a lot of answers on why did he get it? How do we prevent him from getting this again, kind of
Mm.
thing. So I ordered books from Amazon, from different doctors who wrote about heart transplants and different things. And so one of the stories was, one of the doctors was talking about a person who can't seem to get out of ICU, which was Scott at the time. He was in
Mhm.
an intensive care unit, and kind of compared it to Sisyphus
Okay.
and the mythological uh, being that had to roll the boulder up the hill only to see it roll back down. And then, for eternity, he just rolled it up and down. And so that's what this one doctor was referring him to. So the next day I went into the hospital and I was talking to Scott's doctor, and I said, told him what I read. So would Scott be like Sisyphus? And he goes, no, I think Scott would be like the phoenix, where he's in the phoenix is the bird that's in the fire, mythical
Mhm.
bird. But he keeps coming back, and he just comes out of the fire and he lives. And for Scott, that's what he was doing. I mean, he just came back and came back and came back. And it was amazing for us to watch how, how his will to live was so strong. So yeah, so that's why he's called the Phoenix Man.
The Phoenix Man. Well, I love the title, and the cover of your book is gorgeous.
Thank you.
And I'm just so grateful, Julie, that you came on with me today and shared your touching and important story. I just think that is what will connect us as humans, taking care of other people, is hearing each other's stories and knowing
Yes.
we're not alone.
Well, thank you, Michelle. I really appreciate you having me today.
It's my pleasure.